Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Bill Gustin here from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue's World Headquarters, just west of Miami International Airport. This is an international hangout because we have two brothers with us from north of the border in Canada. One would be the soon-to-be Chief Brent Brooks and Chief Alain Rancourt from Quebec. Did I pronounce that right, Chief? Quebec?
That's right. Quebec, Canada. Okay. That's the province.
Right. Yeah. And then we have a highly distinguished chief, Jason Hoevelmann from America's Heartland, and our Captain Clark Lamping from the Clark County, Las Vegas Area Fire Department. My counterpart, fellow oldest guy in the room, Captain Mike Dugan, Ladder Company 123, retired, and Jimmy Davis, Captain Jimmy Davis from the Chicago Fire Department, Engine Company 43. So we're happy to be here with you. Let's give a shout out to our friends at Key. I say this every hangout, man. That hose is being dragged all over, and the heat index today is like 106 outside. It's like a steam bath. So when it stops pouring, that it's this gigantic sauna. So the poor recruits are out there dragging this hose across that asphalt and around corners and over windowsills 5 days a week. And some of them actually come in on their days off on the weekend to do it. You want to test a piece of equipment such as fire hose, put it in the hands of fire recruits. You'll find out real quick how it's going to hold up. And Key hose, regardless of its grade or diameter, holds up very well to heat and abrasion and has an incredible kink resistance. The two guys that I'm closest to are Mark Lighthill and Dave Hibben. But also Clark is going to give a shout out to company president. I understand you had dinner with the president of Key Hose.
Yes, actually the owner, Captain Gustin.
Owner, okay, okay.
Yeah, Burke. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Burke Gentner. So he contacted me last month because I don't know if you knew this, but Paul Shapiro, who was my friend who just passed away, Paul Shapiro worked for Key Hose, and Burke got word that Paul Shapiro died, and we were having a memorial service for Paul Shapiro. And so Burke very generously called and said, I would like to pick up the entire bar tab for the memorial service. And I said, Burke, we're talking about 200 firemen here. And he said, I don't care. I want to pick up. I cannot make it. I really have something I cannot get out of. I wish I could be there. And if I can't be there, I'd like to pick up the tab for the whole place. And it was fantastic. Very, very generous. So he let me know he's coming into town. So we met for dinner. Very interesting individual. He's a private pilot, travels all over the world, does very well. He was telling me about his company. Unbelievable stuff that they're still so backed up on orders. So the looms that make the exterior of the hose, he had to buy another 130 loom machines just to keep up with the orders. And he's going to Croatia in a couple months. He's going to Croatia to look at some more equipment to buy and ship in. So they're doing very, very well. He tells me that his campus is expanding. They keep building warehouses, adding equipment, and they're still having trouble keeping up. So very nice gentleman, had a great time, and we talked shop for hours.
Great. And Brent, before we get to concealed spaces, let's discuss current events, what's going on in our lives and careers. And I'm going to start with our special guest, Alain. Short notice. We're working on an article with something that really resonates with me. And if you'd like to share with our viewers and participants a little bit about the article that they can find on fireengineering.com.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm Alain Rancourt, Battalion Chief with the Gatineau Fire Department in Quebec, Canada. Gatineau is 2 hours west of Montreal, just across the river from Ottawa, the nation's capital, which is in the province of Ontario. That article, the idea came because I'm teaching a lot since the past 2 years all over the province, and I've been to many departments, and it surprised me a lot how many departments struggle with accountability or that don't have a system at all. Many small departments like volunteer departments, sometimes it seems to be a big issue with them, especially when the first engine arrive with 2-3 members on board. There's no officer there, and then a few other firefighters will arrive with their personal car. And I always ask them, who's taking care of accountability and what's the system in place? And rarely I have an answer. And that's why in the article, the example I give, it could be as simple as a carabiner at the pump panel or inside the driver's door, so they can hang on their tag, their name tag there. It's a start, for the accountability. And then when the first officer show up on the scene, he'll know who's on scene. He won't know exactly where they are, but at least he knows who's on scene. And then he has to do a part to find out where they are, and then assign people on supervision to supervise these people, make some little team, and then assign until another officer arrive, and then the command post is set up and all that. So that's how it starts. Plus, with Project Mayday, with the stats that they're giving us, sometimes it's pretty frightening. 68% of the commanding officer had no accountability on hand. So can you imagine the stress they had if you try to locate a person and you don't know where he is and who he belongs to?
Alain, I answered a Mayday on a 300-foot cargo ship on the Miami River, a floating dumpster. And the water was flashing to steam. If you touched the deck, you'd get burnt. And a fellow tripped and went down on this hot deck. And I was appalled at how few company officers actually had, we call it a passport. Velcro, you can stick it on your helmet. I was appalled. They just don't take it seriously. And I became acquainted with that type of system when I was teaching in Trinidad, which is they operate on the UK system, and they call it the BA control system, and the tag they call it tally. And that was in the 80s. But I think generally, you were mentioning about the volunteers. Captain Mike, do you remember a terrible event where 1 or 2 volunteers that showed up in their private vehicles, they couldn't be found, their families couldn't found out? Am I correct on that?
That was a long time ago, Bill. Yes, you are correct about that. I'd have to go back and look it up to find the results where it was. But I remember that story that they didn't know where they were. They didn't even know they were in the fire.
Exactly,
and,
right.
You can go back to some of the other ones. I mean, look at one of my heroes, the guy from Worcester, Chief Mike McNamee, who at the bottom of the stairs thought he had 4 missing members, did not know that there were 2 more in that building. They did not know that they were in there. And, he tried to have accountability, but in something that large, the accountability, you got to get good at this, and you got to have a system that works for you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The factor in the Lakeland, Texas church fire. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And Alain, you're spot on, bro. We've got writing lists and on a paid career department. It's the volunteers, keeping track of them, where this is so critical. And like you say, just a carabiner or something where you can put your name tag on there would make a world of difference. And
Yeah,
like I say, I read your piece yesterday and it really resonated with me. Chief Jason, do you have any issues with accountability, enforcing it, making sure it's in place?
We do. And there are active attempts right now to change our accountability program. We still have the 2 cards or tags that each member is supposed to carry. The problem is there's a lot of problems with that system. It determines that each person's always going to have their tag put on the right apparatus, taken off the right apparatus, and so on and so forth. The other part of it is it has to go to the command post, which means that if you've got pre-established SOGs that dictate your actions as you arrive, you have to take a detour to the command post or have somebody take it there before you go do a primary search or before you do truck work or you're the primary engine. So there's a lot of challenges that we've faced with that. And we're trying to find a solution. As to yet, we really haven't found one that meets all of our needs and that accomplishes everything we want it to do. There is some discussion about, and I think Mike can probably talk about this more, but there was some discussion about radio identifiers that each person's portable when they log in the morning. It's on there. But again, they have to be able to have the right manning personnel assigned to those units and the right radios. And but we still struggle with it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on in your world, Jimmy? You're muted, Jimmy.
Hey, Cap, not too much, but I wanted to really touch on that pass, and you brought up some good points, and I just wanted to bring it back through time. What we did is in our department in regards to accountability, and a great subject to talk about. You brought up some great stuff, but going back in the timeline, the 2 line of duty deaths from Chicago, December 2010, the 2 firemen that died, Stringer and Ancrum, from the building collapse. Chicago Fire had no accountability system in place when they lost their lives at that fire, and it was a bowstring roof collapse. Instituted change with our department where we went into a pass tag system, which is a plastic tab, which is kept on the rig on a carabiner, which was an identifier who's physically on that rig. So what was interesting about this fire, that fire came in right around shift change. So they had no clue who was on that call, who was here, who was doing what. And it was right at shift change where a couple other guys that were coming off duty or who could have been off duty jumped on the rig. So you had 7, 8 guys riding on these rigs. So when that collapse occurred, there was no way of accounting for, who was under that pile of rubble. It was just a free for all and a very, very tense moment, trying to find out and sort through who's there and who isn't. That was a scary day for our department. So again, that was something that instituted change in our department. And I think it's kind of a very effective system moving forward from that line of duty death. Again, we learned from line of duty deaths and we learned about keeping track of our people.
Well, Captain Mike, on 9/11/01, that was a huge factor, wasn't it? That it was a shift change fire. You had, I don't want to say too many people, but.
Well, you had guys, listen, we lost all 5 rescue companies. And the rescue companies, some of them guys were in their cars in the parking lot and heard what was going on, parked their car, got out, got their gear and got back on the rig. There were guys who were going on details, and I don't know what Chicago calls it when you move to cover another firehouse because your engine company has too many people. You go someplace else. We call it a detail. But we had guys detailed. They go in and they're walking the firehouse, and the guy says, "Oh, you got this run? Because, I got to go get my kid from school or whatever else." This guy gets on the rig. He's never met anybody in the company before, and he dies with those guys. I mean, it's unbelievable. So the accountability is really, in the accountability, unfortunately, it falls a lot on the officer. But the officer has to be notified. If, Clark is relieving Bill, and they just come in and say, "Hey, Cap, I'm going to take over for Bill." I have to change my riding list. We have the electronic riding list. All the radios have identifiers, but I have to change my riding list. Now I'm supposed to do that at the computer, but if you don't get at the computer, you have to do it at least on the pen and paper and put it on the rig so you know what's going on with this stuff. you print up your writing lists, and we print them up on the computer, and now you change it in pencil, but people have to find this. There were also guys on 9/11 who volunteered. One of my chauffeurs who died down there, Pete Beerfield, was in Ladder 42. He was at the medical office and he saw what was going on, got in his car, went down, put a note in ladder 10s, grabbed some gear, and went into the building. We didn't know he was missing for 3 days. And then they found the note, and his wife called the firehouse, and then they found the note. The note's up in the firehouse where he worked, up in ladder 42. And it's a famous note. It says, "My name is Pete Beerfield. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I'm sorry. I've got to do what I got to do. I'm a fireman."
If I can add something on that. Many department doesn't use the name tags for the personnel. So their accountability is made by the truck number or engine number. So it's very important that the integrity of the crew is respected. It must be a high discipline officer that keep its people together. Because if firefighter Smith call a mayday and he doesn't mention his engine number, where is Smith? There's no track of him. So people must stay together and the officer must have the control on his crew.
I think from operationally, Bill, I think one of the best things you can do for accountability is a pretty strong command structure with division supervisors and group and branch leaders that get a lot of face-to-face at the task and tactical level, that helps ensure a lot of that accountability.
I guess every fire company or officer knows of a guy that you got to lasso, because he'll take off and he'll go in with another company, go in on another hose line. And I was off the day they had this fire, but where is so-and-so? Well, did he wander off this close to transmitting a mayday? And when he came out, that officer wanted to choke him out. He was so mad. And he would do it all the time. I want to give a shout out, if I could, to UL Fire Safety Research Institute. I'm a big student of theirs, and have been since its beginnings. They recently released a new training program, an online training program. This is search and rescue tactics in single story residential structures. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking back in my mind, wait a minute. The house that they're using, the purpose-built, they had two of them, purpose-built wood frame houses, is almost identical to a house in my former district where the medic rescue and the engine made a rescue, a great rescue. And so many of what they call tactical considerations, we're tactical considerations on this fire. So Peter, can you bring up those pictures, please?
Stand by, Bill.
All right, brother.
In the meantime, Chief Rancourt, can you please tell us where we can find your article that you just wrote?
It's on right now today. It's on the web page of the website, on the front page, right at the beginning of the website. Yeah, the title is
Fire Engineering, right?
Yeah, Fire Engineering, and the title is The Success of the Good Accountability System. And there's a lesson learned that we had a mayday. Fortunately, it was nothing major. But one of the link of our accountability system failed with the emergency radio, and I'm explaining to it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, it's a one story. This happens to be of concrete block and bearing wall construction, but a burglar bars on every door and window, typical for us. And you can see we already melted the aluminum awnings. So you obviously you see where the fire room is, and it's the fellas knew that it was a bedroom because of they're familiar with the layout of homes in that district. The green arrow is pointing to another bedroom directly across the hall. So if you went right down vertically from the ridge line, that's about the middle of the hallway. So you've got one bedroom that's roaring. You got another bedroom, and I think you can see that the window is open here. That's going to be a key, as UL says, tactical consideration. So next picture there, Peter. No, not that one. Okay. You can see this is a hell of a fire. And I mean, it took part of the roof, intense fire. And you're looking at the doorway, and right across is the closed door to the bedroom where the occupant was sleeping. She didn't even know. She didn't know her house. Now she was elderly and she was physically impaired. But I mean, this thing is cooking. So and what I did was I submitted an article on this fire, and the title is Analysis of a Rescue as it relates to new UL training program, which is the single family, single story. And because it was like uncanny resemblance to so much of these. And one thing that, Clark, I know that you and I have discussed before. They make a point in their training program. VEIS and interior search are not necessarily mutually exclusive. In other words, could you enter through a bedroom window, close the door, search the bedroom, and then open the door and check for conditions outside in the hallway, and if possible, close the door to that room, keeping it in an area of refuge, go ahead and search some more. You get in trouble, go back into that room. Didn't you have an experience like that?
Yes, Cap. Several years ago, I was not on fire, but it was one of the companies at my station. So we had a fire in a 2-story home. Fire was on the downstairs Alpha Delta corner. Upstairs bedroom was also Alpha Delta corner. They had an elderly woman there who just had back surgery and she could not escape herself. So the fire had auto exposed out of the fire room and was extending into her bedroom. She was seen in the window, and as the companies arrived, they said that there was a woman there screaming 30 seconds ago. She was screaming in there for help. Now she's gone. So the fire was still, they couldn't place a ladder into that window because the fire was up the side of that building. So they went to the bedroom window next to it. They did a VEIS, very rapidly searched that room. They knew exactly where they needed to go, opened the door. Conditions were tenable inside. And so they made their way down the hallway, located a bathroom, did a real quick search of that bathroom, went down there, entered her bedroom, located her right underneath the window and removed her. Fortunately, the engineer, the driver off that fire engine, pulled the hose line and put the hose line in the window and knocked down the bulk of the fire, because they explained, after I talked to them about the rescue, they explained we had fire coming in the window and then it was getting pretty hot in the interior. So they've got this woman on the floor without respiratory protection. And they thought, well, we're here now. What are we going to do with her? And fortunately, they knocked the majority of that fire down. And they said, we noticed conditions immediately improved interior. And so they drugged her down the hallway back into the room where the ladder was in the window, and they removed her like that.
The similar situation with this fire, if you can show the next picture there, Peter. Okay, this is the engine and the medic. And remember, on our department, Miami-Dade, a medic rescue is an ambulance, sure it is, but the outside configuration and is all truck tools, except for ladders, of course. And the officer and what we call the GIB, the guy in the back, they're sitting in jump seats with breathing apparatus behind them. So they're ready to rock and roll. And so in my article, I examined why no VEIS, and why no transitional, because those are valid questions. And of course, I answer them with an abundance of 20/20 hindsight, in time. There was no time for deliberation here. As it turned out, they decided against the VEIS and against the transitional, and the rescue crew went in just a few feet ahead of the engine. But once they determined that the fire was licking out of the bedroom into the hallway, they couldn't go any further without getting burned. So they had the engine company with the line pass them and start knocking down that fire. The rescue crew saw the door across the hallway and had the discipline and just the common sense to realize we cannot open this door right now because it's the fire, the conditions are just lousy in the hallway. Let's wait for the engine to achieve some measure of fire control. Thank God they did that, because had they opened that door, if you go to the next picture, had they opened that door, look at the windows on the occupant's room. You would have had a friggin' flow path go across that hallway and right to those windows and burn that lady up. Probably burn the firefighters up too. So take a look at the last picture. Yeah, it's a lot of that soot is post-fire. But what these guys did was they could have been heroes making a grab and dragged this lady down the hallway, or took out the burglar bars and shoved her out of a window. But no, conditions in their judgment was that the room is tenable. Let's just stay here with the lady, let the engine gain control of the fire and achieve some ventilation, improve conditions in the hallway. And then they carried the lady out like gentlemen out the front door. So I'm really proud of those young guys. But it's just so many of the considerations are identical to the UL study. So it is a testament to the relevance and accuracy of their program. I think the project manager is Keith Stakes. But it's always enlightening, and no matter how much time you got on the job, even guys like Captain Mike and I, there's always something to learn from these guys. And I was just so proud of my guys.
And Bill,
Yes,
I just
sir.
have a question for you. I looked at that and I think they did a phenomenal job. My question is, if the guys decided to go in the window, because those windows are higher than average in a lot of those old Florida houses, and those windows might be made of steel, do you have any kind of requirements that you have to have a way immediately to get back out that window in case conditions change?
Mike, these guys, the young guys on this rescue, they've got a VES ladder. They took and broke an A-frame ladder apart, and they've got that ladder. And my guys can take burglar bars. They're just so used to it, and because they're so common. And actually, what we're doing is we're equipping the medic rescues, because there was some whining about gasoline fumes from rotary saws. So what we did is we equipped every medic rescue with the battery powered rotary saw, and it is the cat's ass for that type of thing. I gotta say hello to Key again. Hello, Key. Thank you, Key, especially Burke, Mark Lighthill, Dave Hibben, for being our good partners here. And I suppose, since we're at the halfway point, Clark, you've got a concealed space call from hell you want to talk about?
Yeah, Peter, can we bring that picture up, please? So yes, so we had a fire in a ductworking from a vent or kitchen hood, and It was in a hotel, it was in a casino in Las Vegas. And the problem with this fire in the casinos in Las Vegas, they don't have direct access to the roof. It's such a large building. The restaurants are typically on the first or second floor. Well, you might have 7 stories above you. So you don't have the pipe that goes directly out to the outside atmosphere and vents. So this fire we had smoke and odor. Oh, okay. We'll talk about this one first. Yeah. So this is the Cosmopolitan Hotel. All right. And this is a camera system that is in the courtyard, and it has eyes on every single square foot of the exterior of that building. This was purchased after the October 1 shootings. So this system, they can detect someone flicking a cigarette butt off of that off of a balcony, and they'll have security in their room in less than 5 minutes. So throwing bottles, anything off. So this is a very, very expensive computer system. This was station 11 on A platoon. I wasn't on this call, but all these wires, all the electronics for this camera system goes down into a chute. And they had an electrical fire in this chute, and they couldn't hit it. They couldn't even see where it was coming from. So if you take a look at the next picture, Peter, they simply took dry chem extinguishers and start dumping dry chem down. See all that? Those are all the conduit of all the electrical wires are burning right there. And it just drops down into a vault somewhere. Couldn't see where it was going. So they just started dumping dry chem extinguishers down on those wires and down into the vault. So that's another example of and we never found out where that vault terminated, where it ended up, but they did extinguish that fire with those dry chem extinguishers. So here's a picture of the hood. That is some of the ductwork for that oven hood. And so we had a grease fire inside the ductwork. So it left the oven, and we located there. So I was on this fire. We extinguished what we could, and then it's still burning. And then we noticed the ductwork just traversed and went into a wall. And we asked security, where's it go? What's on the other side of that security system? I don't know. I don't know. So we were constantly looking for, where does this duct, and the whole duct was burning. There was so much grease in the duct, the whole length, it was several hundred feet of ductwork, and it was all on fire. And so we had to go room to room to room and breaking into doors and looking to where this ductwork came from, looking to where it went. I was actually on the roof. I located coming out of a roof. And so we just had to take a reciprocating saw, cut through it, and I started dumping water on one side. They said, no, we don't even see your water yet. It was such a long ductwork. So it was a long, painful, and just a gigantic pain in the rear end fire, trying to locate where all this ductwork went. And you can see how it was extending out of the ductwork, it was burning through the ductwork, and we had damage to the sheetrock and things like that. But just a giant pain. And I'll never forget this fire. I can't remember what hotel it was, but I'll never forget being on this fire and trying to locate this ductwork.
We've had things like that, and in the little cafeterias, but I know what you're talking about, where you have horizontal runs of duct. Now there's a nice building next door to our training facility. We go over there for lunch sometimes. It's got horizontal runs of ductwork for their hood system, but about every 5 feet you got a clean out. You got an access hatch. So we don't have to cut it apart with an air chisel or whatever.
The problem with it is, Bill, a lot of times is the restaurants, and probably, I know in New York City's codes, but probably in your codes, probably in Las Vegas codes, they have to have the ducts cleaned at a certain time. They have to have the filters cleaned at a certain time.
Yeah.
And they have to be inspected by someone who's got a license. A lot of times this is not done correctly. In New York City, they now require the owner of the restaurant to get photographic evidence from time-stamped photographic evidence from the companies to the before and after of the duct cleaning. Because some of these ducts we have seen in some of these buildings, I mean, it is absolutely positively disgusting. And I have had second and third alarms because of these ductworks running up the outside of the building, getting into windows of apartments, burning the roof off the building. And this happens frequently. But a lot of times it's because they're not maintained. It's the one in Atlantic City at the casino wasn't maintained. The system, the links for the Ansel system over the stove were so covered with grease that they didn't go off. And what finally caused them to go off was like what Clark did when the engine company went up on the roof, opened up the line in the duct going down. It blew all that heat down and finally released those links. And the system worked 22 minutes after the fire was dispatched. So you can imagine how long that took.
Yeah, geez, I'm looking at your comments there, Jimmy. And I think if that's something as firefighters everywhere, I'm sure they have ductwork fire in Quebec. Alain, any difficult, let's just call them ductwork fires from hell that you've had to deal with?
Not recently. Years ago, I remember once, and it was exactly like Clark said, and Captain Dugan. It was a difficult job. And sometimes we have to be careful as chief officer when we're in charge. Sometimes, like recently, I experienced something with two young acting lieutenant that got 10 and 12 years on the job. And it was a fire in a kindergarten in the kitchen area. And they told me that the overall was all done. So after the fire, we went inside, myself and the division chief, and we were extremely surprised to see that the char cabinet over the stove was still on the wall. There was only inspection hole at the top of the wall, and the ceiling was down. That's it. The appliances were still in place. So we called them back and we asked them, did you do overall? They said, yes. So what did you do? They said, well, ceiling, holes in the walls, and we look with our tick. So it's more than that. So we had to explain to them during the after post critique, what is it overall? And it has to be in depth and make sure that there's no ember behind the appliance and all that. So when we have a young officer, we must have a good supervision on them. And if we can put some extra chief or experienced officer inside to have a look, it can prevent bad surprise.
Alain, we have most of our hoods over a resident home or apartment are just a filter, a catalytic element, a light and an exhaust fan sucks the vapors in, filters them and blows them back out. But there are some that actually have a duct connected, and more, I've never seen one go through the roof. They terminate in the attic. So just the simple act of opening the cabinet above the hood on the stove. If you see a duct, you better hold every company there and get up in that attic and start looking, because chances are, whether the exhaust fan was on or not, there's still that stack effect. You'll suck that fire right up in there, especially if it's feeding on, the residual grease. Brent, as I said, I envy your department's capabilities with concealed spaces. And one thing that I actually stole your idea and put it in my article in April. I got the picture from you, thank you, of one of your guys carrying the core drill, which is, not something that you see every day. So, hey, Ricky, you want to come over and say hello to everybody? Come on over, come on. Okay. Here's my brother from a different mother. Ricky Stevens.
Hi, y'all.
And when are you competing in the combat challenge again?
There was a competition that was just announced for Vegas in 2 months.
2 months. You gonna be ready for it?
No,
And you're in the 65 and over category?
65 and a half.
And can I brag on you, bro? Second in the world combat challenge in where? Dubai? Yeah. I got video of him riding a camel. Ricky riding a camel. Yeah.
What age group was that, Ricky? When you won second place?
Over 40.
Over 40.
Now 2 back surgeries and knee surgeries. I'm half of the person I was before.
Half. I'd say you're at least 2/3 the person.
And thanks for the meal. Thanks for taking me out and showing me Vegas when I was out there.
Absolutely. Did you say you're coming to Vegas again? The competition's in Vegas?
Boom.
There
But
you-
it's on me this time.
Not a chance, brother. Not a chance. It's not how it works. Yeah, if you only knew someone in Vegas that could look after you while you were here, I'll do some research for you. All right, Ricky?
Maybe
Yeah,
hook
you
up
can
the
never
Cosmo.
show up to my house and buy a
Yes,
meal,
it's-
Clark.
Old hotel. We want to go to the Cosmo. That's where we want to stay.
All right, you can stay. I'll stay with you. I'll stay with you at the Cosmo.
Ricky and I are, he shot a video of, the streamers on the Underwriters Laboratory, what do you call it? The water mapping prop. And with the, holding the nozzle stationary for a transitional attack. And the streamers are kind of just hanging there. But man, when you start, as soon as you start doing this stuff. In fact, at one point, there's actually opposite the window where they were applying the stream is a doorway, an open doorway. And we entrained so much air into that room that it actually overpressurized and blew the streamers out of the window because of that amount of pressure. But we got to put that together for our.
That's what I'm working on now.
He's working on it right now.
You get it in 30 minutes.
All right, my brother.
Nice meeting you all.
Thanks, Ricky.
For engine.
Gentlemen, I'm getting a call. I'm gonna have to
All
go.
right, brother.
All right, you
Clark.
guys take care.
Yeah. Take care, brother.
All right.
Safe.
Hey, Clark.
And Clark, I don't give a shit if it, oh, sorry about that. I don't give a damn if it's a medical call. Take every friggin' window out of the place, man, just to keep it practiced. Brent, tell us about this core bit. Do you have a picture for us? You gave the,
I probably couldn't pull it up fast enough, but the thing about specialty nozzles and over my career, you know, you see every time you could use it. And I had to figure out, why aren't these tools being used? Like, you know, there's that picture that Clark saw. I know I would use the horizontal void nozzle there because I know I have 80 feet reach a stream off each side. I got zero nozzle reaction. But why would we not bring that in? And the reason is because you've gone in with a hose line. Your hose line's there. You have your irons. It's your fire. You want to get it. So what we did was we changed the ability to add a specialty nozzle to the front section. So by having a tip that spins off, now I don't have to worry about running a second line. Bring the specialty nozzle, add it to the front. It's got no nozzle reaction. It's got 160-foot reach of stream. Send it for a few seconds, reset that fire, and now move it another 80 feet and do it again. Use the core bit, use your Sawzall. So we had to think differently. And those specialty tastic nozzles have to be pre-deployed really or staged. So you have the ability to hand it off to someone at the front or run another line. But I would preferably, you know, those fires are stubborn. You know, you may not be on air like that picture in Clark, but you don't want to go back out to the truck to get it. So if you can have the ability to add to the front, makes a whole world of difference. Your water's already there. Now let's use it efficiently.
Brent, have you ever used it in the interstitial space between a ceiling and floors that are supported by lightweight engineered wood floor trusses?
Yeah, and I think I sent you that video. It shows us using it in the floor space. So
Yes.
stuff collapsed. There was heavy furniture in the room, and we only got it open that much. And we got in there with the New York hook, pried it open, got that bar in. The house is 40 feet long. We had 160-foot reach of stream, and then you just saw us. We started working that joist space, and it was a done deal. Before, man, we'd be moving furniture, we'd be cutting holes in floors. It's just a long-winded exercise, and now it's going to get in that balloon frame construction, and we're going to be chasing it. So, we certainly have, and you know, like I said, we have that dedicated high-rise unit, which you probably dropped that name high-rise. You know, specialty tactics might be better suited because when we go to a house fire, that's all we're doing is we're bringing those specialty nozzles forward and putting them into play. And we're bringing our standpipe kit at a house fire to actually put those specialty nozzles into play. Because we're going to control our own pressure depending on which specialty nozzle we're actually going to use. So it's not a standpipe kit, it's a gate and gauge kit.
And the other thing,
Toronto, you guys have got your act together, man.
with that with that stuff, I mean, back in the old days, I remember cutting the floors, and the only saw a lot of places have is a gasoline powered saw. So now you're filling the place up with carbon monoxide, you're putting the brothers at risk. And of course, you know, they're not going to go on their air right away because they're afraid the fire might take off, and they're going to save their air, and you're putting brothers at risk. Now, the battery operated saws are better and a good thing for this, but you have to make sure that everyone understands what's going on inside this place. And if you can get that in there with that nozzle, it's a win-win.
And if you're going to try and go down and get a coring tool, don't copy what we've done here in Toronto, because that was in its infancy stage, just to try and get this new tactic, this new strategy that's not being used. So go out and do that much better, and then we're going to try and do better than you. And eventually, we're going to get, you know, the best coring tool and the best coring machine that we can share with fire departments all over. So please don't do what we do. Just take that idea and please try and make it better, because there are better coring tools now that have less torque. We had to go with a 4-inch coring bit because the torque was so great. Well, now we can go up to a bigger coring bit to fit the 2.5 because the technology's changed with the clutches on these things. So take what we did and please try and make it better.
And Brent, do you use it from the ceiling and from the top of the roof, both ways?
Yeah, so that one picture I showed you, we went to the roof. Again, we're bringing our stamp pipe kit and we're bringing our high-rise packs to the roof of a residential house fire. We're dropping 150 feet. We're keeping the gate and gauge up top with us. We're dropping one length down, and then we're going to just get them to send us water. And then we just plunge cut the coring tool, put the Bresnan in, and then we can get off the roof. So there's a couple of fires I think I sent you where it's a row house. So we go to the firewall, we drill the hole, put the Bresnan in, and we get off the roof. And then we go interior with another nozzle, and we can do another core hole. But in most times that fire will come right along and it'll hit that giant sprinkler head in the attic, and then it starts to die down. And then we have like a lot of fires that we have pictures of it. It's absolutely fantastic. We're putting a sprinkler head with steroids inside the roof or attic
And
space.
Brent, I've plagiarized the hell out of you. And I was successful in convincing my higher brass in the department to make sure that each fire company has at least one 2.5-inch Bresnan. And I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to air my dirty laundry in public. A lot of people don't know what a Bresnan distributor is. So they can tell you who's the center forward for the Miami Heat or the Florida Panthers, or what's the batting average of this, or where's the best fishing spot, but they don't know what a distributor nozzle is. I guess it's just a matter of priority.
So true. And we're actually going to be calling our specialty nozzles, instead of Bresnan distributor, we're going to call them rotary distributors, just because of the different variety. And we don't want to call that for that. Because the 1.5-inch Bresnan distributor is great for garbage chutes, because the stream actually comes up first. So when I go to make that first bend, it's actually coming up on us on that smaller Bresnan, and it works better with the 4-inch coring tool. So depends on what opening you have. And the opposing tip nozzle, you don't need to get the full opposing tip. You cut a hole half the size of that, you put it on an angle, put it up, and then turn it into place. So, people think, oh, it's that nozzle's too big. Well, it's not. It's at the 1/2-inch tips, or I can actually spin the tips off. It's 2 1 1/8 tips. And if we use it for high rise, there's a picture. We had a fire, and you can see there's a bulkhead sticking off the high rise building. Well, the floor blow nozzle, we can't turn it. It's got too much nozzle reaction. So if you use the opposing tip nozzle, it has no nozzle reaction. 50% of my water is being wasted, but the other 50 is actually getting the target. So it's okay to waste water to get water on the target.
Brent, the waterway, will it flow enough to supply 2-inch and 1/8 tips?
It will.
It isn't that big around.
Yes, I have videos of that too, of us doing it horizontally, doing it vertically with 2 1 1/8 tips, and yeah, it's impressive.
And I do believe
sorry, the half inch tip cuts through that cellulose, that pink foam insulation. That's the one you want for the hidden joist spaces. But if you want to get, bigger water on a target that you can't get, then you're going to break it down to 1 1/8 tip. You just lose reach of stream, but you certainly gain volume.
Captain Mike, isn't that a brainchild? We're talking back to back bent tips. Isn't that a brainchild of the FDNY?
Yeah, we called it the cockloft nozzle.
Okay.
And that's where it started because we had, again, a lot of the blown-in cellulite insulation, the blown-in insulation, and of course, they didn't keep it around. I remember going to one. The chief was my buddy for life because he's like, okay, we'll make this a 1018 for an odor. And I'm like, hang on a second, chief. And the guy's like, come here, come outside and look on the fire escape. And you go outside and there are the cockloft vents, the roof vents because of the heat. And every once in a while, you just see a puff of smoke coming out of there. I said, no, chief, hold everybody. Let's start a line to the top floor. We're going to start pulling some stuff. And it ended up, the guys coming on the third alarm told us they had flames 35 feet over the roof line when they came there. And that's the one where one of my guys, my chauffeur, was really, really top notch. And he said at that fire, he said, hey, Captain, give me the thermal imaging camera. I'm going to go up to the roof and I'm going to isolate where it is on the roof and be able to come down and tell you where to pull. Because the thermal imaging camera, again, is kind of useless because there was about 1.5 foot of blown in insulation.
Yeah.
And he went up there and I was like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And he came down and he said, it's in that room, pull the ceiling. And we had fire everywhere up there. We burnt the roof off the building. Plus there was a cell phone thing and the generator for the cell was on gasoline, on natural gas. So there was a gas line across the roof and everything else. So again, there are a lot of parts of this that you have to be very, very aware of when you're doing these things.
I think we've all been to fires. We're looking at some of the, Brent, if you want to kind of give us a narration here.
Yeah, so this is a roof on roof at the parapet, and you can see that the squad made multiple cuts. You just can't get it. And this is a row house. You can see the valleys and the pitches, and we're like, hey, let's bring our high-rise stuff up to a residential house fire. I know it seems weird, our gate and gauge, and we're going to drop, five stories basically of hose off the roof. They're gate and gauge, and we're controlling it on this pitch. And there's no nozzle reaction, and it's fed with the 2.5. So I'll just play it here now. Oops. See if it'll play for you.
Brent, are we talking about a rain roof, a roof over another roof, original roof?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And that's a cookie that worked. And then that other picture, there's the floor joist space, and there's so we're using it vertically and we're using it horizontally. So 2 different animals, 2 residential house fires, but we're controlling that with the gate and gauge. So the pumps.
Am I looking at a rim, not a rim board, a ribbon board or a ledger for balloon frame construction there on to the right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and there's it in a church. The big roof there, we just showed the arrows, and we would have lost that church, but it's that nozzle that gets 160-foot reach of stream. So we use this quite regularly, and we have a prop, and there's no nozzle reaction. Like they're holding that effortlessly, and then horizontally, vertically, there's just no nozzle reaction on it. It's a pleasure to use. But make sure your nozzle tip is interchangeable, where you can kind of add those. I'll stop sharing, but that's our.
You guys are something else, man.
Yeah.
Elaine, any problem? Have you ever been to a fire, Elaine, where all you have is an odor of smoke, and 2 hours later the building is on the ground because the fire has taken possession of the floor spaces, it's running the floors? That's
luckily, no.
Yeah.
Luckily, no. But there's one thing about all these special nozzles. Many department doesn't use them because they're in the worst compartment behind all the stuff. And it happened to us many years ago with our old pumper. It was on top of the pumper in a small cabinet. Since we got our new rig, we reposition it, and then boom, everybody is using our piercing nozzle. So it's a big thing.
Alan, man, I just got to think, you put a 50-foot or 100 feet in between your shut off and the piercing nozzle. It just seems to me it's so much easier to just, and Glenn Corbett agrees with this too. When you got the parallel cord truss floors, balloon frame construction just laid on its side. Just wouldn't it be a lot easier to just boom, open it up, no steam, no harm, no foul, close it, go to another place, rather than trying to chase it. And every time you open up some more sealing, you're opening up the damper of a wood burning stove even further. I think it's the way to go. I think we've got to start working smarter rather than harder. And these specialty nozzles are, especially when you got limited manpower, I really think could save the day. Or when the heat index is 106 degrees, brother. Look at that. Hey, that is a great picture, bro. Brent, that is friggin', I wonder what normal people find interesting, but this is what I find interesting.
And then, so here's a nozzle you can just put in your pocket. It's got that 1/2-inch tip, and there it is, balloon frame construction, and I'm wheeling that around. Now, this has nozzle reaction. I got to caution you on it. It does have nozzle reaction, but it's a great tool. And there's balloon frame construction, and that's how you go about using it.
Okay, when can I expect your article, now that you're not studying for chief anymore? When can I be expecting the article for fire engineering on that?
So I have a ghostwriter now, Maurice Doyle, 426, 41 years on the job. He's someone that I look up to. He's going to be my ghostwriter. So we're going to work on that, and we've already started. It's should be good.
Well, I told you, I've been a
Can I just say something, Brent?
for years.
Brent, can I just say something?
Yes.
I write a bunch of stuff for fire engineering, and there is a software called Dragonfire, Naturally Speak, where you talk your ideas and it puts it out. You have to read it as story so it understands the difference in your voice, Elaine's, mine from New York, the accents and all that. But you read to this and you put this software out and it prints everything up. It's called Dragonfire Naturally Speak. I use it all the time. It will help you on PowerPoints. It will help you on articles. It will help you on all the other stuff. It is really a good software. Look it up. You can get it online and you don't need a ghostwriter. And the other thing is, when you write for fire engineering, there are people there. Diane will edit your article, send it back to you. Is this what you mean? Is this what you want? Don't think that it has to be perfect, because none of mine had ever been perfect. And I don't think any of Bill's have either. Get the ideas down there and they will edit it for you. But that's the way to get the ideas down there, brother.
That's great advice. Thanks very much, Mike.
All right, fellas, we're going to wrap this up. We'll start clockwise here with our special guest, Alain. Any final thoughts? Any suggestions? Lessons learned? And
Well,
will you come back?
Well, if I can be relevant, I'll be back if you invite me. I was very honored to be with you. I'm watching your Hangout. It's been a few years. And now that I was on the show today, since you told me yesterday, I was extremely honored. Thank you very much. I hope my accent wasn't too tough on you.
No, we're honored to have you, brother. We're honored to have you.
Thank you.
Captain Mike, anything, sir?
Just on that odor of smoke, that whatever it is, until you find out what caused it, don't leave. You will look like an idiot. And in a lot of places, a rekindle it's a failure. Okay. Do not leave until you are 110% sure that the fire is out. I have a bunch of stories I could go over, but one of my favorite is we had a fire. Chief came up, looked around, says, "Looks good, guys. Okay, we're going to take up." And he left. And he went back to the firehouse, and he was in my firehouse. And he's in the firehouse for about 45 minutes, and we haven't come back. And he's like, something's wrong. And he comes back over there and we're still there and we're pulling ceilings and chasing a pipe that was heated and went across into another apartment and up the walls. And we're still knocking down fire and it's still smoldering and everything. And the chief comes back and he's like, holy Christmas. And that night, the chief bought dinner for the entire crew because we saved him. But again, don't leave until you know exactly what's going on, until you found it, until you know. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Captain Mike. Chief Jason.
Yeah, just good to be on again. And I would add to what Mike just said, especially at the turn of the season, when it's fall's going in, summer's going in the fall, those smell of smokes, people like to ride off to lint in the furnace. And I've seen that go sideways on a number of occasions. So I agree with Mike, be very careful with those. And sometimes you have to open up and don't be too hesitant to do that. Better than going back later.
A combination of errant stray electricity, a bad ground, and an open neutral. You can still have something cooking for weeks or months. And you have a phenomenon called pyrophoric carbonization, which actually cooks the cellular or the moisture out of the wood, turns it into charcoal. And people get used to the smell. And you got a fire, you open up a wall and there's no wire in sight and there's no external source of electricity. It's an electrical fire. I don't care if there's a wire. There's no wires in sight. It's still an electrical fire. Brent, anything for us, sir?
Yeah, just that, not just only knowing your specialty nozzles, but if you want to put them into play, know how to put them in play and make sure they're interchangeable with all your tactics. And then you'll start using the specialty nozzles more often.
Captain Jimmy?
No, Brett, I like what you said, man. Just more tools in your toolbox. That's what's great about these shows. It expands your options of what's available. So I really enjoyed it. I got to get my checkbook ready now to buy some of these things, but they do work and they're highly effective. I know on previous conversations with you, Brett. Yeah, keep up the great work, man. You guys are doing it really, really cool out there, man.
Well, our thanks to our friends at Key Hose. Take the Key Challenge, try to kink it. That's keyhose.com. And until next month, there'll always be a next month. Alain, thank you so much for coming on board. We look forward to having you back. You could pick the topic and just let us know. And as you can tell, we don't adhere rigidly to any comment because we're friends. We're having a conversation here. Okay, it's not a webinar. We're having a conversation. And the day that we can't have a few laughs and have a good time amongst friends is a day I'm not going to do it anymore. So until next time, brothers and sisters, keep that fire in the belly. Keep your heart and your head in the job. God bless you and keep you safe and our most noble of professions.